She had never been afraid of billionaires. Boardrooms didn't intimidate her. Luxury didn't impress her. Money, in her experience, was simply a louder version of insecurity. But she was afraid of shy men, because shy men watched. And the ones who watched too closely had a way of seeing the parts of her she tried very hard to keep hidden. Amara Khan checked her reflection in the dark window of the restaurant before stepping inside. The glass showed a version of her she recognized: calm, composed, effortless. The kind of woman who negotiated contracts for tech investors and never once stumbled over a number. The kind of woman who did not say yes to dinner with reclusive billionaires she'd met only once. She smoothed the sleeve of her navy dress. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't trying too hard. It was the dress she wore when she wanted to feel like herself. Inside, the restaurant hummed low and golden. Soft lighting, private tables, the quiet kind of expensive that didn't need to announce itself. He was already there. Adrian Vale sat at the corner table near the window, one hand resting loosely against a glass of water, the other folded in his lap like he didn't quite know where to put it. His suit jacket was draped over the back of his chair. Sleeves of his white shirt rolled up just enough to reveal strong forearms and a watch that probably cost more than her car. He looked up when she entered. Their eyes met, and he smiled. Not wide, not confident, just small and almost uncertain, like he couldn't quite believe she had come. That was what had unsettled her from the beginning. Adrian Vale was worth several $1 billion. Founder of a cybersecurity empire, known for turning down interviews, known for declining galas, known for disappearing from public view for months at a time. And yet the first time she met him at a mutual client's charity event, he had stood near the wall, uncomfortable in his own spotlight. She had teased him about it. "You look like you'd rather be anywhere else." He had answered honestly, "I would." That was when she'd noticed it. The difference. He wasn't shy because he lacked confidence. He was shy because he disliked being watched. Now he stood when she approached the table, nearly knocking his chair back in the process. "Hi," he said. His voice was deep but careful, like he measured each word before letting it exist. "Hi," she replied. He pulled her chair out for her, his fingers brushing the back of it lightly. When she sat, he waited until she was settled before taking his own seat again. "You look..." He paused. She raised a brow. "Like I survived the drive?" A faint breath of laughter left him. "You look incredible." There it was again. Not rehearsed. Not smooth. True. "Thank you," she said softly. For a moment, neither of them reached for the menus. The air between them felt charged in a way she hadn't expected. She'd gone to dinners with powerful men before. Most filled silence with stories about themselves. Most performed charm like it was a currency. Adrian simply watched her, his gaze steady but never invasive. He didn't scan her body. He didn't lean too close. He just looked at her face like it mattered. "I wasn't sure you'd say yes," he admitted. She tilted her head slightly. "You asked. You hesitated. Observant." His lips curved faintly. "I notice things." Yes, she thought. That's exactly what worries me. The waiter came. They ordered wine. Food followed. Conversation unfolded slowly at first. Work, travel, safe territory. He asked about her firm, about the investors she represented, about the languages she spoke. "You switch between them easily?" he asked. "Easier than switching between personalities," she replied lightly. His gaze sharpened just slightly at that. "You change who you are for people? Doesn't everyone?" He held her eyes a second longer than comfortable. "I don't think you do." The statement was quiet, not accusatory, just certain. Her pulse skipped. "Mr. Vale," she said gently, "you don't know me well enough to make that conclusion." Adrian, she corrected. He leaned back slightly, giving her space, but his eyes never lost that focused intensity. "I don't think you're someone who bends easily," he said. "You negotiate. You don't adjust." The words should have flattered her. Instead, they felt dangerously close to understanding. She reached for her wine. "And what about you? What about me?" You're supposedly ruthless in business, and yet you look like you're afraid of this table." A shadow of amusement passed through his eyes. "I'm not afraid of the table. No, I'm afraid of saying the wrong thing." That surprised her. "Why?" "Because I don't do this often." "Dinner." He shook his head slightly. "Letting someone see me before I know if they'll stay." The sentence settled between them like something fragile. She opened her mouth to respond, and then she heard it. Her name, not softly, not warmly, but sharp. "Amara?" Her spine stiffened instantly. She didn't have to turn to know who it was, but she did anyway. Ryan Malik stood 3 tables away, disbelief written across his face. Her ex, her almost fiancé, the man who had walked away 6 months ago because she wasn't ready to prioritize marriage. And now he was looking at her like she had betrayed something that no longer belonged to him. Adrian followed her gaze. He didn't speak. He simply watched. Ryan stepped closer. "Well," he said, glancing between her and Adrian, "this is interesting." Amara felt heat rise up her neck. "Ryan," she said evenly, "what are you doing here?" "Dinner." Clearly. His eyes flicked to Adrian. "And you are?" Before Adrian could respond, Ryan's mouth curved slightly. "Let me guess. Investor? Client? Or did Amara finally decide she wanted someone with real money?" Silence fell heavy over the table. Adrian didn't flinch. He stood slowly, not rushed, not aggressive, just steady. And when he looked at Ryan, his voice was calm enough to cut. "You've mistaken the situation," Adrian said quietly. "She's here because I asked, not because she needs anything." The room felt smaller. Ryan laughed lightly. "You don't know her." Adrian's jaw tightened slightly. "You're right," he said. "I'm still learning." And then, without raising his voice, "But I do know she deserves respect. So you'll either lower your tone or you'll leave." The authority wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Ryan hesitated. Something in Adrian's stillness unsettled him. "Relax," Ryan muttered. "I was just surprised." His eyes met Amara's again. "Didn't think you'd move on that fast." Her chest tightened. Adrian's hand moved. Not to touch her. Not to claim her. Just resting lightly on the back of her chair. Present. Grounded. "I didn't realize I needed permission," she said calmly. Ryan studied her one long second. Then he stepped back. "Enjoy dinner," he said, voice thin, and walked away. Silence lingered after he left. The wine glasses remained untouched. The air between them had changed. Adrian sat back down slowly. He looked at her, not curious, not suspicious, concerned. "Do you want to leave?" he asked. Her pride wanted to say yes. Her instinct wanted to run. But something in the way he had stood up for her without escalating the situation, without asking questions first, anchored her. She exhaled slowly. "No," she said, and for the first time since walking in, she meant it. For a few seconds after Ryan disappeared into the far end of the restaurant, Amara couldn't feel her fingers. Embarrassment had a way of freezing her from the inside out, not because she cared what strangers thought, but because she hated losing control of a room. And she had lost it, if only for a moment. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. Adrian frowned slightly. "For what?" "For that." He studied her face carefully, as if deciding whether she was deflecting or genuinely unsettled. "You don't owe me an apology," he said. "He does." "That's generous of you." "It's accurate." She gave a small, humorless laugh and finally reached for her wine. Her hand trembled just slightly. She hoped he didn't notice. He did, but he didn't mention it. Instead, he did something far more dangerous. He changed the energy. "Tell me what happened," he said gently, not demanding, not prying, just offering space. She hesitated. She didn't talk about Ryan easily. The relationship had looked perfect on paper. 2 ambitious people, similar backgrounds, shared social circles. But Ryan had always needed something from her that she couldn't give without shrinking herself. "He wanted a timeline," she said finally. "For everything. Engagement, Wedding. Children. She shrugged lightly. I wanted air. Adrian's gaze didn't waver. And that was unacceptable? For him? Yes. The waiter returned with their food. Plates were set down between them, aromatic and beautifully arranged. Neither of them touched them yet. And for you? Adrian asked. For me? She took a breath. I don't like ultimatums disguised as love. His lips pressed together thoughtfully. That sounds exhausting. It was. And you loved him? The question wasn't sharp. It wasn't territorial. It was honest. She appreciated that. I cared about him, she said. But I don't think he ever really saw me. He saw a future wife, partner in status, a checklist. And you didn't want to be a checklist. No. Silence stretched again, but softer this time. Adrian picked up his fork, then set it down again without taking a bite. I won't ask you for a timeline, he said quietly. She blinked. I'm not sure that was on the table. It is now. The directness caught her off guard. You think this is headed somewhere? His expression shifted slightly, less shy, more certain. I don't ask women to dinner lightly. The air thickened again. Adrian, I know you don't know me well, he continued, voice steady. But I don't do casual well. I don't do performance. I don't collect people. If I'm here, it's because I'm serious. She felt her heartbeat tick up in response. That's a lot to put on a first dinner, she said softly. It's honest. Yes, it was. That was the problem. She finally picked up her fork, forcing herself to take a bite. The food was excellent. She barely tasted it. You're very intense, she murmured. I've been told. And does that usually scare people away? Yes. And you're okay with that? He held her gaze evenly. If someone is scared of honesty, they won't survive me anyway. Something in her chest tightened. She wasn't scared of honesty. She was scared of being chosen too quickly, of being seen too clearly, of not being able to leave when she needed to. You barely know me, she said. I know how you held yourself just now, he replied. You didn't shrink. You didn't apologize to him. You didn't make excuses. That tells me more than a month of polite conversations would. She swallowed. He was right. She hadn't shrunk, but she had wanted to run. I don't run, she said quietly. His brow lifted slightly. From conflict, from expectations. And what do you think I expect? She hesitated. I don't know yet. Good, he said. She frowned faintly. Good. I'd rather you not assume. The words hit closer than she liked. She looked down at her plate. You assume people will leave, he said gently. It wasn't a question. Her throat tightened. That's not fair. It's not an accusation. He leaned back slightly, giving her room again. It's an observation. She forced a breath out through her nose. You're doing it again. Doing what? Noticing. A faint smile touched his mouth. I warned you. She stared at him a moment longer. Then, unexpectedly, she laughed. Not polite, not controlled. Real. He smiled fully this time, and something inside her shifted. Dinner resumed. The tension softened into something warmer. They moved back into easier topics. Music, travel stories, his childhood. You hated attention? She asked. Still do. But you built one of the largest cybersecurity companies in the country. Yes, that's contradictory. No, he said simply. I like building things. I don't like being the thing. She studied him. That's rare. So are you. Her fork paused midair. That was smooth, she said. It wasn't meant to be. That's worse. He chuckled quietly. They lingered longer than either expected. Dessert arrived. Then coffee. And when the bill came, neither of them reached for it at first. Finally, he picked it up. You invited me, she said. I did. I can pay for myself. I know you can. Their eyes met. He didn't argue further. He simply paid. Outside, the night air was cooler. City lights reflected off glass buildings in fractured gold. They stood on the sidewalk for a moment. Do you want me to walk you to your car? He asked. Yes. They walked side by side in comfortable quiet. At her car, she turned to face him. He didn't step closer. He didn't reach for her. He just waited. I had a good time, she said. So did I. Another pause. She felt it, the question hovering between them. Will you see me again? He didn't ask. He just looked at her like he was giving her the choice. That steadiness again. That patience. I'm free Sunday afternoon, she heard herself say. His eyes warmed instantly. I'll take it. For what? There's a place I want to show you. She narrowed her eyes playfully. Mysterious billionaire energy? Hardly. It's a bookstore. She laughed. A bookstore? Yes. That's your big reveal? It's important to me. The simplicity of it touched her more than she expected. Sunday, she said. Sunday, he echoed. Neither moved. The space between them hummed. He looked like he wanted to kiss her, but he didn't. Instead, he said quietly, I'm glad you stayed. The words landed heavier than they should have. She understood what he meant. You didn't run. She nodded once. Me too. She got into her car. And as she drove away, she realized something unsettling. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't thinking about her ex. She was thinking about a shy billionaire who had stood up without raising his voice and asked for nothing in return. Sunday afternoon arrived slower than she expected. Amara told herself it was just anticipation of a second date. Not curiosity, not excitement, definitely not hope. She chose a cream blouse and tailored trousers, something softer than business, but still undeniably her. As she locked her apartment door, she caught her reflection in the hallway mirror. She looked lighter. That unsettled her more than nerves would have. Adrian was waiting outside the bookstore when she arrived. Not leaning against his car like a model in a watch advertisement. Not scrolling on his phone. Just standing there, hands in his coat pockets, eyes scanning the street until they found her. And when they did, that same small, private smile. He looked almost relieved. You came, he said. I said I would. He nodded once, as if that meant more to him than she understood. The bookstore was tucked between a cafe and an antique shop. The sign was slightly faded. The windows were lined with handwritten staff recommendations and crooked stacks of novels. This is important? She asked softly. He opened the door for her. Yes. The smell hit her immediately. Paper, dust, coffee drifting from next door. Inside, the space was warm and narrow. Wooden shelves reached the ceiling. A ladder sat on tracks along one wall. Soft instrumental music played overhead. She turned slowly, taking it in. It's beautiful, she admitted. He watched her instead of the shelves. I used to come here when I didn't want to be recognized, he said. You're recognized in bookstores? Sometimes. The faint shrug. But here, the owner doesn't care who I am. He cares what I'm reading. She smiled slightly. And what do you read? Biographies, history, architecture. He paused. Poetry. That surprised her. Poetry. He nodded. It forces me to slow down. She stepped toward a shelf, fingers grazing the spines. I translate contracts all day, she said. Precision, legal nuance, deadlines. And here, she glanced over her shoulder at him. I read fiction. It's the only place where ambiguity feels safe. His gaze held hers. Ambiguity isn't safe, he said quietly. No, it's just unchallenged. She turned fully toward him now. Are you challenging me? Always. Her lips twitched despite herself. They wandered through the aisles slowly. He showed her the exact spot where he used to sit on the floor with a stack of books when his company was still in its infancy. I couldn't afford distractions, he said, so I came somewhere quiet. And now I come because it reminds me I built something from nothing. She studied him differently then. Not the billionaire, the builder, the quiet boy who preferred books to attention. They stopped in front of a small poetry display. He picked up a thin collection and handed it to her. Open to any page, he said. She raised a brow but did it. Her eyes scanned the lines silently. He didn't ask what it said. He just waited. "It's about staying," she murmured. He nodded once. "I know." Her chest tightened slightly. "You choose very strategic books. I choose what matters." She closed the book carefully. "Do you always move this intentionally?" "Yes." "That must be exhausting." "It's efficient." She studied him for a moment longer. "And what happens when something isn't efficient?" His gaze softened slightly. "Then I learned to be patient." Something flickered between them. Unspoken. Real. They moved toward the back corner where two armchairs sat near a small window. He gestured for her to sit. She did. He sat across from her. For a moment, they simply existed there. Two adults in a quiet bookstore, sunlight filtering across wooden floors, the noise of the city muffled beyond the glass. "You didn't ask me anything about him," she said suddenly. "Your ex." He tilted his head slightly. "I didn't need to. Most men would." "I'm not most men." "No," she agreed softly. "You're not." Silence again. Then, "He hurt you," Adrian said gently. It wasn't a question. She considered denying it. Instead, she exhaled. "He disappointed me." "That's worse." "Yes." She clasped her hands together loosely in her lap. "I don't like feeling replaceable." His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "You're not. You can't know that." "I can." "How?" "Because I don't replace people." She looked at him steadily. "And if I disappoint you?" His answer came without hesitation. "Then I'll tell you. No dramatics. No threats. Just clarity." She felt something inside her shift again. "That's terrifying," she admitted. "Why?" "Because most people don't say things directly. They withdraw. They punish quietly. I don't." "I know." The knowledge scared her and attracted her. He leaned forward slightly, resting his forearms on his knees. "You think I'm intense," he said softly. "Yes." "You think I move too seriously." "Yes." "And you're waiting for the moment I demand something you can't give." Her breath caught. "You're doing it again," she whispered. "Noticing." She nodded. "I don't want you to run from me," he said quietly. The vulnerability in his voice was subtle but unmistakable. "I won't," she said automatically. His gaze sharpened slightly. "Don't promise reflexively." She swallowed. Then, "I'll try." He studied her for a long moment. "That's enough." Her phone buzzed in her bag. The sound startled her. She pulled it out. Unknown number. She hesitated. Adrian noticed. "You don't have to answer." She nodded, but the buzzing came again. Persistent. Against her better judgment, she answered. "Hello." Silence. Then, "I saw you today." Her stomach dropped. "Ryan." Her pulse began to race. "Where?" she demanded quietly. "At the bookstore." Her grip tightened on the phone. "What do you want?" "You move fast." She felt heat rise in her chest. "I don't belong to you." "I didn't say you did." "But you're calling." Silence again. "I just wanted to know if this is serious." Her jaw tightened. "That's none of your concern." She ended the call before he could respond. Her hands were shaking now. Adrian had stood during the call. He didn't ask what was said. He just watched her carefully. "It was him," she said. He nodded once. What did he want? To see if this was serious. Adrian's expression didn't change. "Is it?" The question landed heavier than Ryan's. She looked at him, at the man who had chosen poetry about staying, at the man who stood up without yelling, at the man who didn't flinch at confrontation. And for the first time, she felt the edge of fear, because this was serious, and serious meant vulnerable. "Yes," she said finally. His exhale was subtle but real. "Good." They left the bookstore hand in hand. It wasn't dramatic. There had been no grand declaration, no fireworks, but when Adrian's fingers intertwined with hers outside the door, it felt deliberate, claiming, not possessive, just certain. She didn't pull away. The afternoon air was crisp, the sky painted in pale winter light. They walked without urgency, past cafes and narrow side streets where fallen leaves gathered near curbs. "Does he scare you?" Adrian asked quietly. Ryan. She shook her head. No. Does he make you doubt yourself? She hesitated. That's more complicated. Adrian slowed slightly, turning toward her as they stopped at a crosswalk. Tell me. She inhaled slowly. He makes me question whether I'm too independent, she admitted. Whether I resist things I should embrace. Like what? Like commitment. The light changed. They crossed. Adrian didn't release her hand. Independence isn't resistance, he said calmly. It's preference. That's very generous. It's accurate. She looked up at him. You speak like you've never doubted yourself. A faint smile curved his mouth. I doubt myself constantly. That's hard to believe. It's easy when you build something large enough for people to criticize. Her expression softened slightly. And how do you handle it? I evaluate the criticism. If it's useful, I adjust. If it's not, I discard it. And relationships? He paused. I don't discard people. Her chest tightened. She knew that. She felt it in the way he held her hand. They reached her car. She turned to face him. You're very certain, she said softly. I am. That makes me nervous. Why? Because certainty implies permanence. And permanence implies risk, he finished for her. Yes. He stepped closer. Not enough to crowd her, just enough to close the space between them. Everything permanent is risky, he said. That's what makes it worth choosing. Her pulse thudded in her ears. And if I don't choose it, then I respect your decision. No manipulation, no pressure, just an open door. She realized something then. He wasn't trying to trap her. He was inviting her. That felt very different. She rose slightly onto her toes and kissed him. Slow, intentional. His hands moved to her waist, steady and warm. He deepened the kiss carefully, as if he were still testing the space between them. When they parted, her breathing was uneven. You didn't ask permission, she murmured. You leaned in. She laughed softly. Observant again. Always. He brushed a strand of hair away from her face. Call me when you get home. I will. She got into her car and drove away, heart racing. 3 weeks passed. They didn't rush. They didn't define every step immediately. But something settled between them. She spent evenings at his apartment, translating documents at his kitchen table while he worked across from her. Sometimes she'd glance up and find him watching her. Not intensely, just appreciating. He learned how she took her coffee. She learned that he preferred silence while thinking. He didn't flood her with constant messages during the day. But he always responded, always showed up, always stayed. That steadiness unnerved her more than drama ever had. One Thursday night, she found herself curled into his couch, reading, when her phone buzzed again. A known number. Her stomach tightened instinctively. She ignored it. The buzzing stopped. Then her email notification pinged. Subject line, you're making a mistake. Her breath hitched. Adrian noticed instantly. What is it? She handed him the phone without speaking. He read the subject line, then the message. You think he's different. He's not. They never are. Call me before you make the worst decision of your life. Adrian's jaw tightened slightly. Do you want me to respond? He asked. No. Do you want me to intervene? She looked at him sharply. How? There are ways to make someone stop. The calmness in his tone was more intimidating than anger. She placed her hand over his. No. He held her gaze. You're sure? Yes. She inhaled slowly. I don't want you fighting my battles. His eyes softened slightly. It wouldn't be a fight. I know. Silence settled between them. Then, I can handle him, she said quietly. Adrian studied her carefully. This isn't about proving you can, he said. It is for me. He didn't argue. He simply nodded. Then I trust you. The trust in his voice felt heavier than protection would have. She squeezed his hand once. I won't disappear, she added. Something flickered in his expression. Relief. Good, he said softly. 2 nights later, Ryan showed up outside her office. She saw him leaning against the building when she stepped out into the evening air. Her spine stiffened. "Why are you here?" she asked calmly. He pushed off the wall. "You won't answer calls. I blocked you." "That's dramatic." "No," she said evenly. "It's boundary." He scoffed. "You really think this guy is different?" She didn't flinch this time. "Yes." Ryan's expression hardened slightly. "You barely know him. I know how he responds to pressure." "And how's that?" "He doesn't raise his voice." Ryan's jaw tightened. "You're idealizing him." "No," she replied calmly. "I'm observing." Silence stretched. "You'll regret this," he said finally. She tilted her head slightly. "Why?" "Because men like him don't choose women like you." The insult was subtle but deliberate, and something inside her clicked. Not hurt, not doubt, clarity. "Then he's already proving you wrong," she said quietly. Ryan stared at her for a long moment. Then he shook his head and walked away. She stood there for a second, heart pounding. Then she reached for her phone. She didn't hesitate. She called Adrian. He answered on the first ring. "Hi." "He showed up," she said. Silence. "Are you safe?" "Yes." "Where are you?" "Outside my office." "I'm coming." "You don't have to." "I know." The difference between need and choice. She swallowed. "I didn't run," she said softly. He was quiet for a second. "I know," he replied, and she could hear the pride in his voice. 3 months later, Adrian took her back to the bookstore. Not for a date, for an answer. She didn't know that yet. The afternoon was quiet. November light filtered through the front windows, pale gold and heavy with the kind of stillness that only comes before winter. Amara had assumed they were simply revisiting a favorite place. She should have known better. Adrian didn't revisit things without intention. They walked through the aisles slowly, her hand tucked into his. He was quieter than usual, not distant, just focused. She had learned to recognize the difference. When they reached the back corner near the armchairs, he stopped. "This is where you sat," he said. She looked at the chair near the window. "Yes, and I sat there." He gestured to the opposite chair. She nodded, uncertain where this was going. He turned to face her fully. "That day," he said quietly, "you told me you'd try not to run." Her throat tightened. "I remember. You didn't run." The words were simple, but his voice carried the weight of someone who had been watching, waiting, hoping, and had finally exhaled. "You stayed," he continued, "even when he called, even when he showed up, even when I was intense and direct and probably overwhelming." She smiled faintly. "Probably." A small breath of laughter escaped him, but his eyes stayed serious. "I told you once that I don't collect people," he said. "That if I'm here, it's because I'm serious." "I remember." "I meant it." She felt her heartbeat begin to climb. He reached into his coat pocket, and just like the first time she met him, no performance, no grand gesture, no audience, just him, just her, just truth. He opened the small velvet box. The ring inside was elegant. A single diamond set in a thin platinum band. Understated, deliberate, like everything about him. Amara Khan. His voice was steady, but she could hear the emotion underneath. The same vulnerability he had shown her from the very first dinner. The same honesty that had terrified her and anchored her in equal measure. "You walked into that restaurant expecting to manage another evening with another man who wouldn't see you," he said. "Instead, you stayed. You let me see you. You let me challenge you. And you challenged me back." Her eyes burned. "I don't want a timeline," he continued. "I don't want a checklist. I don't want you to shrink into something smaller than who you are." He paused. "I want the woman who negotiates contracts and reads fiction because ambiguity feels safe. I want the woman who didn't run when her ex tried to humiliate her. I want the woman who kissed me first." A tear slipped down her cheek. She didn't wipe it. "I want you," he said quietly, "exactly as you are. Will you marry me?" The bookstore was silent. No music, no crowd, no witnesses, just the smell of old paper and the man who had chosen poetry about staying. She answered before doubt could speak. Yes. His exhale was the most unguarded sound she had ever heard him make. He slid the ring onto her finger with hands that trembled slightly, the hands of a man who had built an empire without flinching, now shaking because she had said yes. She pulled him closer and kissed him. Slow, deep, certain. When they parted, his forehead rested against hers. "You stayed," he whispered again. She smiled through the tears. "I told you I would try. You did more than try. I chose." His arms wrapped around her fully, and for a long moment they simply stood there, two people who had both been afraid of being seen, now fully visible to each other. They married in spring. Small ceremony. Garden venue. Only the people who mattered. His mother cried before the vows even started. Her father walked her down the aisle with quiet pride. Adrian's best man was his younger brother, who spent the entire reception telling embarrassing childhood stories about the shy billionaire who had once been afraid to order pizza over the phone. Amara's maid of honor was her closest friend from university, who whispered to her before the ceremony. "He looks at you like you invented oxygen." She already knew. 2 years later, they bought a house on the outskirts of the city. Not a mansion, not a statement, just a home, with a library. Adrian designed it himself. Floor-to-ceiling shelves, a window seat, space for 2 armchairs near the fireplace. He still brought her coffee without asking. She still translated contracts at the kitchen table while he worked beside her. They still argued, gently, productively, the way two people argue when they trust each other enough to disagree. And whenever she felt herself pulling away, retreating into old habits, he would simply look at her and say, "Stay," and she would. Their daughter was born on a Tuesday morning in early autumn. She had her father's quiet intensity and her mother's stubbornness. They named her Lena. It meant tender in Arabic. Adrian held her for the first time with the same careful reverence he had shown Amara that day in the pool. Steady, deliberate, afraid of nothing except doing it wrong. He didn't do it wrong. One evening, when Lena was 3, Amara found them in the library. Adrian was sitting in the armchair near the window. Lena was curled in his lap, a picture book open between them. He was reading to her, slowly, patiently, the same way he had read poetry. Amara stood in the doorway and watched. Her husband looked up. Their eyes met, and he smiled. That small, private smile. Still hers. Always hers. She crossed the room and sat in the opposite chair. The same one she had chosen years ago. He didn't stop reading. He just reached across the space between them and took her hand. Their daughter turned the page. Outside, the city hummed quietly. Inside, the fire crackled. And Amara realized something. She had spent years afraid of permanence. But permanence wasn't a cage. It was a choice, and she had chosen well.